Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Most exciting news for me this week, it's only something that dropped yesterday. There is a new Chronicle. Really awesome. I got it from the EVE Online Twitter, so check it out for sure. It's part of the story, and to me it's a possible indication that more live events and more interesting lore stuff is going to happen. At some point we are going to see more about the drifters. The nutshell that I can definitely take away from the Chronicle is that basically the Ascension, the Alpha clones are a response to the drifter threat by some forces somewhere. So I think it's pretty cool, and I hope we get to see more. Of course, we're here for the market, so let's jump into this. First of all, we are going to check on plex at around a minute. 100, there we go. And plex are hesitating a little bit. They're at 1,076 million for the sellers, 1,038 million for the buyers, and you can see here on the chart that we're basically moving sideways at the moment. It's also in between the peak of November at 1,220 million and of course the bottom at 850 million in June. So which way do we go from here? That's all about your own expectations. I personally think that we will start to get under pressure as activity drops a little bit in the game. The one thing that is interesting that I saw on Reddit last week that could end up being a content driver is that Brave is going back towards Test Alliance. So there is quite a bit of history behind all of that, but that could become a very interesting deployment that will potentially have ramifications that will make nullsec quite interesting. This could of course also make the entire game quite interesting and thus increase activity and increase demand for plexes. We'll see how all of that works out, of course, but at the moment my personal expectation is for pressure on plex as activity tends to decrease after the winter. So that is what I'm expecting here. Multiple pilot training certificate, a bit more of a jaggedy chart here, but of course very similar to plex, currently being sold for 1,140 million and the buyers are at 1 billion, so that's quite a wide margin. I'm surprised by the much higher sell orders here because you do have this special that CCP was running last week, where basically subbing to an account gave you training certificates for the multi for someone else on the account, which should mean lower demand for these. But yeah, at the moment we can also see that same hesitation as in plex. Then one thing that I always keep forgetting to check right away, but we'll also take a look at plex from the perimeter trade hub here. They're selling for 1,050 million. And the buyers from 1,038 go only up to 1,039. So it's really on the seller side of things, because of the lower taxes that you can get in the trade hub, that we're going from 1,076 in station down to 1,050 in perimeter, which is quite a healthy margin, especially if you're looking to use the plex. That is of course where you probably want to buy them. Do you want to risk a trip? So you buy them in the trade hub and then move them to the GTA station. Honestly, maybe if you can time the bottom exactly, it could be worth it. But otherwise, I would just stick to a single place to trade at. And my personal favorite is still to hold them in GTA 4.4 at the moment. Next up, pilot body resculpt. You can see that there's not a lot of those. They're being sold for 305 million. The buyers are at 265 million. It's a tiny market, and it looks like someone came in, bought quite a few of them, 19, which was starting to be here on the sellers. And as a result, the price is going back up a little bit, but very similar pattern since November. So a November high and then some hesitation here at the tail end. It's just that this is such a small market that a day with 20 of them being sold can really cause a drastic shift into the median daily prices and the 5-day moving average as well. So that is something to keep in mind. But do you want to speculate on that? As you can see here, it took almost a month of 3 to maybe 7 or 8 being sold a day, couple of days without them, and then only one big spike here since almost a month. So it's a very tiny market, very difficult, I think, to actually make some money on this one. Next up, the skill extractors, of course, very closely related to Plex. You again have the November peak, you have the June bottom right here, and at the moment the hesitation right in between those two. Skill extractors are selling for 246 million, and the buyers are at, oh, that's still including perimeter, 239.5 million. So decently small margin. You can still see some decent numbers. Let's see, almost 2 pages in the last 24 hours. 90, 89, 30, 70, 69 here. We got 68, 38 as the latest sell orders as well. So there's still quite a bit of supply coming in, which is keeping the price in check, but it looks like we still have decent demand as well. Buyers going up to almost 240 million when the sellers are at 246 indicates that they do want these skill extractors as well, which is why we're basically in this holding pattern. When it comes to Plex related stuff, we're hesitating. Skill injectors could be a different story, and it is. We can see that gradually demand is actually going up for these. This is decently surprising, but I think at some point maybe some of the alpha clones are realizing that, well, skill injectors are the affordable things because they are selling for 653 million ISK. You know, it's quite expensive for an alpha clone, but it's much more likely that you can actually grind this out in a month compared to a Plex. And if you still have room inside your alpha clone skill pool, it makes a lot more sense to go for a skill injector, which you'll get 100% use out of, than to go for a Plex already and try to go Omega right away. This is something that will be much easier to sustain, 650 million in a month compared to a Plex. The buyers are at 625 as well, so decently closed margin, and fresh supply is not that high. You can see here that it's only 5 sell orders in the last 24 hours. So I think supply is slowing down. Demand is staying pretty high. I actually think that makes sense, and as a result we're closing in on a 1-year high. We need to get above 650 million, which we are for the sellers, but we still have a ways to go. But we're definitely at a high spectrum of this 1-year chart when it comes to the skill injectors. Quite interesting. And you had a chance right after the Ascension expansion to buy these for a much lower price. So this is, to me, a very interesting chart if you compare it to Plex. In Plex you have a sell opportunity in March, one buy opportunity in June, sell opportunity in November, and hesitation right now. When it comes to skill injectors, you can see that you had a sell opportunity in April, a buy opportunity in June, but then in July you had a sell opportunity again as well. In September you could have bought them, in November sold them, bought them again in November right after the Ascension expansion, and now you actually have another sell opportunity as well. It's much more volatile, it's much more risky, but you can see that quite a bit of speculation does happen inside the skill injector market, which can make it very interesting if you're looking for an investment that can yield you profits at a shorter term than Plex, where I would say that Plex is much safer. It's much more of a stock of value. It's much more as a hedge against inflation. Skill injectors have a similar purpose, but have this little spice of how much do people value skill points at the moment, and can make that a very interesting place to do trades and to speculate on. So there you go. Pretty interesting actually, the skill injector market there. Next up we've got minerals. That's going to be at 9 minutes. 900, and that's not good news. Here is the titanium chart. We are breaking 4 ISK on high volume, so supply is still unreasonably high, I should say. 384, 385 for the sellers, and is still coming in with 500 million units, 235 million units, 400 million units here, 700 million units at 389. And in the last 24 hours, where do we start that? We're going from 4 pretty much 408 down to 384. So this has really been a rush in the last 24 hours to drive the price down even further. For ETH talk, at some point you're gonna wanna move in on this, but if you look at the ticker, well, it's not there right now, but Titanium went down quite substantially since the last week, and last week I was already at, well, we're closing in on 4 ISK. Is that going to be our actual bottom? Well, no, we just broke through that, lost another 12.5% compared to last week, and yeah, we're definitely through the 4 ISK price barrier here. 384, 385 for the sellers, 360 for the buyers. That's pretty crazy. This is a market in free fall. Have we ever seen 384 before? I think so. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think that this is an all-time low, but this is definitely right up there. I don't think we've seen this price in years at least. What's Pyrite been doing? Unfortunately, not good either, continuing descent as well. The Pyrite is currently selling for 564, buyers are at 545. That is one thing to note. The margins are slowly starting to close at this point, so I don't think we'll break like 3 ISK or anything like that on Titanium. I don't think we'll break 5 ISK on Pyrite either, because 1.7 billion as a buy order should last at least a little while. But we are clearly at 1-year lows here. And for Pyrite, I think that these are all-time lows below 6 ISK, which is to me pretty crazy. Let's see what Mixalon has been doing. 71 for the sellers, 69.75 for the buyers. So that's still holding really well compared to the other ones. If you look at this chart, we're still at a decently high point for Mixalon. It's also trying to fight its way back whenever it dips towards 70 ISK. So good job on Mixalon. It's the one HiSec material or mineral that you can definitely still mine for. And I think if you do the calculations, you'll notice the big difference between the ISK per hour that you get from ores that yield you Mixalon and stuff like Titanium, which at the moment is completely inefficient if you're mining for that, and if you're wanting to sell right away, of course, because you never know what happens in the market. I personally feel that this is unsustainable. It definitely doesn't look sustainable to me, and at some point having Titanium could be the right choice, but selling right now I think is the worst thing you can do. No, it's the second worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do right now is to mine Titanium, mine Veldspar, and sell it right away. I think that that's probably the worst thing you can do right now as a miner. Go for that Mixalon if you need the cash, but otherwise I would say do like me, save it all up, compress it and save it up. That's what I'm doing. Finally, here we also have Isogen for the HiSec minerals, also breaking all resistance barriers, continuing to go down. Sellers are now at 50.89 ISK, buyers are at 49.32. Are we going to get hesitation at 50 ISK? Well, we've seen that before at 70 ISK, at 60 ISK, now at 50 ISK. I wouldn't at this point, because the sellers are so close and the buyers are already below 50 ISK, I wouldn't be surprised that we would actually go below 50 ISK on Isogen, which is completely crazy. But we're definitely at a 1-year low with some momentum. At Titanium, look at that momentum going down. So I can't say for sure that we're reaching a bottom here anymore. This is completely crazy. When it comes to the HiSec minerals, only Mixalon is our savior for the HiSec miners here. So yeah, Isogen currently selling for 50, basically 51 ISK. Buyers are at 39.32, which is extremely low if you look at the full 1-year chart. We're coming from 100 ISK. This is a halving of the price. Maybe that is something that we'll quickly go over as well here. Titanium starts the year at 6.5 ISK and now ends at 385, almost half the price. Pyrite starts at 11 ISK and is now going for 5.5, so that's half the price. Mixalon is doing all right, but then Isogen again starts at 100 if the chart wants to load. I clicked a little bit fast here. Isogen please, starts at over 100 ISK, ends at 50 ISK, half the price again in 1 year. Yeah, again, I wouldn't be selling this, I wouldn't be actively mining that too much, but if you would have it and if you have liquid ISK, I would start to look at investing from buy orders at this point, I think. Next up, we have Noxium, which is also going down the drain. Together, pretty much the same pattern as Tritanium. So here all resistance is being broken as well. 315 for the sellers, 301 ISK for the buyers. Will we keep adding pressure? That's a good question. This is huge here. Really big volume spike, almost twice the daily average quantity. 170 million units. Really quite a lot for Noxium, still being dumped on the market apparently. 600,000, yeah, almost a million here, 6 million units here at 323, and then we're going down to 315. This is definitely a real drive down on not too big volumes when it comes to Noxium. Let's take at Tritanium, it's much more respectable in volumes, right? Constantly 500 million units. For Noxium, this may not be as sustainable. 300 may really become a resistance price point. So yeah, the Isaac minerals just not hot at the moment, but be patient, I think, is going to be the name of the game here. Then Nulsec, we've got Sideline selling for 1074 ISK, and buyers are above 1000 ISK, just above that. And we can see that, of course, we're still giving away ground after the nice spike right after January up to 1300 ISK here. So this is, I think, a natural correction. 1000 ISK though for the seller, for the buyers, is coming pretty close. Previous bottoms have been much lower than that, though, 926. So I think 900 for the buyers would be a price point where you could look at purchasing. Yeah, that still leaves quite a bit of room for Sideline to be traded on a normal basis, a little bit less than average for sure. And are the volumes basically coming in hot at the moment? No, I would say it's almost a full front page. 3 million, 4 million, a million, and a million 3 are decent orders, but if we compare 10 million to the daily traded average of 40 million, all of that could be gone in a day. So the turnaround could happen at any moment, really. In my opinion, it's not all that drastic. It's basically a natural correction after this spike up. Megasite is holding strong though. That's doing really well, staying above 1500 apparently. Sellers are at, let's take a look at that. Fetching orders, fetch them please. Yeah, 1505 for the sellers, 1461 for the buyers. Definitely a very respectable price for Megasite. And you can see a couple of sell orders here, 2.7 million and 2.4 million in the last 24 hours, half a front page. But it's okay, this isn't going to tank or crater the market. Compared to a median daily volume of 20 million, 25 million is definitely possible. It's definitely not oversupplied or anything like that. So Megasite holding strong, Mexalon holding strong as well. Zydrine is correcting back. If you're seeing more dumping and buyers towards 900 ISK, you're getting close to the previous bottom. That could be pretty interesting if it happens. I don't expect it to. The sell order volumes just aren't there yet. And then when it comes to the Isaac minerals, unfortunately, except for Mexalon, all of them at 1 year lows. We'll need patience there. Morphite finally, which is also a mineral that's being mined regularly, but it comes from, it is for Tech 2 stuff, so it's definitely a little bit different, and we're heading towards 10,000 ISK on the average daily prices. 10,200 for the sellers, 9,300 for the buyers. In station, that is starting to get down there, to be honest. It's a decently wide margin of almost 10%. Between the sellers and the buyers, 9,200 on the charts. If we try and grab, is right around here, a little bit above the bottom. So here you can also see that the downswing is a little bit more violent than what it looks like on the full 1 year chart because of this huge spike in June. So yeah, here we go. Quite a bit of a correction happening in Morphite, and the buyers are already starting to come into a pretty interesting territory if you're looking for that longer term investment. One thing that does need to happen, in my opinion, is a really big Nostic war, maybe some super capital losses, things like that could be the trigger to bring back this market. At the moment, it remains a place where I think you should either be very patient and build up your stocks if you're producing this yourself, or slowly start to move in your purchases. Definitely don't move in too big a way, because you don't want to be the one that triggers a temporary boost up, and all which will only end up with supply coming right back, filling that gap, and then you'll see even lower prices. So if you're looking to invest in this, I would look to invest in very small, tiny steps, so that you have a little bit of it. If it continues to go down, you still have some reserves to make your moves on the even lower prices. And that way I think you could end up with a good investment if, like me, you do expect that at some point prices of even titanium will come back, which personally I think they will. I produce a lot of this stuff, so I don't feel like I need to risk many investments in this. But to be honest, titanium at this price range below 4 ISK, it is becoming a place where I might want to risk a few $100 million on a 3.7 buy order or something like that, which is something that I think is historically completely unheard of. Next up, we have PI. That is going to be at 2020. All right. I think here we'll see a little bit less extreme action or extreme inaction, which is it just depends on your view of all of this. But the construction blocks, pretty much on average, looking towards 12.5, 12.8. So 12, almost 13,000 is for the sellers, 11,870 for the buyers. 12.5 I would say is probably the average, and that is in between the buyers and the sellers. So we're at a decent place, because the sellers are a bit higher, but the buyers at 11.8 are around the average. So okay to sell at the moment. If you want to wait for a better opportunity, you could start to do so, but we're not there yet if you want to buy consumer construction blocks. Consumer electronics next, trying to crawl back a little bit from a decently low price point of around 10,000 ISK. Currently selling for 13,000 ISK. Buyers are at 11,770 in the last 7 days. Let's see what we can spot here. It's a trend that was happening in the last couple of weeks, where consumer electronic buy opportunity was basically over. Now we're still not at the average. I don't think 13,000 is okay, but I would dare to put the average a little bit above that actually. So it's still too early to say that, alright, start dumping your consumer electronics. We're working towards the average consumer electronic price here, but it's definitely coming away from the bottom. Coolants next, still working on a pretty good 1-year high here, heading for 16,000 ISK, 16,300 for the sellers, 16,000 for the buyers. That is pretty crazy. I wouldn't hesitate to dump my coolants straight to the buy orders at this point, because this is just, it's more speculation, and I don't think that this will last very long. So if I'm making coolants at the moment, I bring that to the market, I sell it right away straight to the buyers, because we're that much above the averages here. 1-year high, definitely the time to sell. Enriched uranium, I would say that's back towards an average again. What are we selling at? 14k. Sellers 14,400, buyer 14,000, probably a little bit above average here. Bottom at 10,000, the tops at 17,500, a little bit above average, so it's definitely alright to sell enriched uranium here. We're basically bouncing off of an average 12.5k and a little bit of a comeback here. So interesting. PI across the board is at a pretty high point. Here's mechanical parts definitely at a 1-year high. Sellers are at 15,000 ISK for something that you can make on barren planets very easily. Barren planets are extremely common as well. 14,400 for the buyers here. I would probably try to sell just around 1,500 or just below that, something like 14,099 or something like that is probably where I would be selling my mechanical parts at, because the spread here is still decent enough, and you have that, it's still a 14. I'll just quickly pick that up. So I think that's probably what I would do for mechanical parts. But again, a 1-year high, it's your time to produce and sell mechanical parts. If you've built up stocks over the last few months or so, especially because of the weak summer compared to everything else that mechanical parts has had, this is your time to go and grab your profits. Oxygen next. Trying to come back here a little bit. So we went towards 500 ISK, but you can see at the tail end here that there is a strong hesitation. So did supply move in quite strongly in the last 24 hours. Yep, complete gap filling from 550 down to 530. Buyers are at 480. Basically, this fresh supply here is putting a bit of pressure on the price in the last 24 hours. Is going to stop any ascent that was happening here. I'm surprised by the lack of sell orders here when it comes to just the sheer amount of them. This could swing back very quickly with one big buyer, but I actually think that people are starting to make their moves on this, and that we'll see continued supply put a bit of pressure back on it towards 450. I don't think that that's outside of the realm of possibilities. 450, I would put that at an average price. Robotics next, also hesitating at the tail end, but still obviously in a pretty good place. Are the sellers going below 100,000? Nope, 102,000 for the sellers, 99,000 for the buyers. Very, very small margin for something this expensive that requires quite a bit of PI taxes as well. So this is still well above average and a good time to be making and selling robotics. Very respectable price here. Rocket fuel next. That one was basically pretty stable for almost the entire year, and then we had a spike at the tail end. If the chart wants to load, what's it doing? 20-day moving average has pushed right back up here towards 14k as well. Are we still selling well above that? 14,400 definitely. Buyers are at 13,200. It's basically a new normal price around 14,000 for rocket fuels, which means that you're making really good money compared to the rest of the year in this one. Self-harmonizing power cores, we can see the slow down trend due to this being related to structures, and the market has basically absorbed most of that. So currently we are selling for 2.2 million. The buyers are down below 2 million, 1.9 million here for the buyers pretty much. I'm rounding this down quite severely, but yeah, self-harmonizing power cores, I think the trend in the last few months is quite clear. This bump up, this double bump up has probably been on volumes and speculation on the engineering complexes driving up prices, and since then, of course, people are making them. The production cycles are just running, and as a result we're slightly oversupplied, and thus we have this slowdown trend. Superconductors next. I'm making that very efficiently on 2 storm planets, and we're, well, a little bit under pressure, but coming from a high point. I would say we're still a bit above average, but not by much anymore. Sellers are at 14,200, buyers are at 12,750. Yeah, 13k. Let's see if we can get something like that visible here. Yeah, 13,500 is probably around the average, and we're right around that. So I wouldn't be surprised that superconductors, you know, it's okay to sell if you want to start stocking up, considering the downtrend that we're seeing here. I wouldn't blame you, to be honest. Test cultures next. Let's take a look at that one. After 2 lovely spikes up to 15,000 ISK and bottom below 7,500, that's a doubling of the price right here. We're back down towards, let's see what's, yeah, let's just take a look at that. 9,000 for the sellers, 8,500 for the buyers. So we're definitely coming back towards a below average price. Do you want to stock up on this? Do you want to buy just yet? If you know that we have crashes below 7,000 ISK, I think it's still a little bit too early, but if you want to slowly start to stock up on your test cultures, it's probably the time to produce them and to not bring them to the market anymore. That's basically the way I would read this one. Finally, wetware mainframes, also that same, especially if we go like this, that same slow descent like with the self-harmonizing power cores. Currently selling for 2.7 million, buyers are at 2.5 million. It's the same story. These are related to the construction of structures, and as a result they've been oversupplied and gambled on in October before the Ascension expansion, and now of course some of those stocks need to be absorbed by the market, and we're going down slowly. So PI, there's not much to tell, except of course for coolants being at a 1-year high, mechanical parts being at a 1-year high. These are the 2 that you want to produce and bring to the market right now, because that's not going to last either. Just like titanium is down to 385, mechanical parts being up to 15k, it won't last forever either. Next up we have Tech One chips at 29 minutes. Okay. We're keeping the same ones as last week, because honestly a lot of this in the Tech One market is looking for a break in the trends. There's not enough happening in nullsec, there's not enough happening in rebalancing either, and the mineral market, well, it's down the drain. As a result, I don't see it happening just yet. So Apocalypse again, definitely below the averages on the 1 year chart, and yeah, maybe trying to come back just a little bit. Sellers are at 160, buyers are at 146 though. Historically speaking, very cheap Apocalypses. Arbitrator next here, back towards its average, slightly under pressure as well. One price spike here in October, but there's not much to tell except that, well, it's doing surprisingly well for a cruiser here. 8.2 for the sellers, 7.5 for the buyers. So a little bit below average, but not by that much. So it's actually doing decently well, this arbitrator, despite the very low volumes. Bellicose next. We had a crash last time here, so hopefully it doesn't happen. But again, you can see that we start the year above 9 million. We end the year well below that, towards 8 million. That is again that same pattern, especially since November, December, Ascension expansion, mineral price crashing, and thus all the ships that require minerals tend to go a little bit lower here. The Breacher next, that's a frigate of course, much smaller, much bigger stocks available as well, and ooh, lovely volume spike here. So a couple of Breacher fleets have been bought out here after the Breachers crashing to a very low point of like 300,000 ISK. They're coming back a little bit, selling at the moment for, come on sellers, at 450,000 ISK. I actually have a Breacher blueprint. I should maybe look into the margins on that one. It could be interesting because of the huge volumes right here. Obviously back up a little bit, but the Breacher was also one that really dove down quite substantially in December. Quite a bit of movement for a frigate on that one as well. Here is the Brutix. You can see again, start the year at around 55 million, a bit above, a bit below, but with the Ascension expansion, we have the crash down. The new average prices are below 50 million. One spike tried to break back out, but it just didn't happen. Currently selling for less than 50 million. The buyers are at 42 million. Average prices for a Brutix, probably 45, something like that. Very, very affordable. Catalyst next, also under pressure. One spike here, probably some preparation for burn Jita, if that's going to happen at all. We're lacking any actual news here, but selling for less than 1 million. Buyers are at 900,000. You can definitely pick up some cheap catalysts at the moment. Cormorant next, not much to say except that at the tail end here, we're definitely breaking down towards a new low price. So Cormorant again, 1.25 million on average, a bit, maybe 1.3, let's say 1.3 on average for the entire year. And now a bit of a late pullback, but in the end, right, with Tritanium going this low, Pyrite going this low, either the margins become crazy, but people produce this stuff and they're willing to sell for lower prices because they can make them so much more cheaply. So the Cormorants are also selling well below 1 million now. Buyers are below 800,000 except for one of them. So Cormorant under pressure quite substantially. I think it's basically the mineral market bleeding through. Here is the Crucifier. It's a frigate of course, much smaller, but you can see we start at around 500,000 ISK and we end with quite a bit of hesitation and heading towards 300,000 ISK. 370 for the sellers, 200,000 for the buyers. Frigate markets of course much more difficult to actually track. On the Drake, the poor Drake that's been nerfed into oblivion, starts at 50 million, 52 million, something like that. And here again, November Ascension expansion, bit of a move back up, but there is just no stopping this. 45 million on average, 45 for the sellers, 42.5 for the buyers. Very cheap Drakes once again. Retriever next, also going down, of course, this had to happen. With mining ships as well. Take one mining ships, that is, starts at 30 million, currently selling for 22 million, 21 million for the buyers. So they're trying to stop the descent, but there's just basically no stopping it. And finally we have the Tempest. If we zoom this up a little bit, starts at around 200 million ISK, manages to hold 180, but here we have the first nag down to 140, which is definitely a little bit too low, even for a battleship, so we work our way back up a little bit, but here the pressure continues. Tempest is currently selling for 158, buyers are at 147. cheap Tech 1 chips because of the cheap minerals. It's the name of the game right now. We need something drastic to happen, maybe a huge rebalance, or a CCP intervention, or a massive war for this to actually change. But that also means that you're buying stuff on the cheap right now. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Don't go crazy. Again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But this is the time, I think, to build up stocks that will probably increase in value when something happens. So that's my look at it, or when inflation keeps happening. At the moment, of course, people are mining up a storm, but I don't think that CCPs wants to see the entire economy, the entire Tech 1 economy, down the drain either. So I would start taking my positions, to be honest. Next up, Tech 2 at 35 minutes. All right. Nice round time right there. Here's the Aries markets, also under pressure a little bit. If you look at the chart like this, we have high points up to 26 million, low points at 20 million. So the question is, where are the buyers at for the Aries, since we are going down from a bit of a spike, not that great. 19.7, you're buying Aries for less than 20 million. If you look at the entire chart, that's definitely a good time to be buying Aries and hope for Nosek Aries fleet to go down. Next up here we've got the Claw. Let's take a look at that. I definitely still like the Tech 2 small ships for some speculation. Here is the Claw. You can see price spikes up to 30 million. Now we're going back down. Definite bottom. Yeah, you would put that at 18.5 million. Where are the buyers at after the volatility? 19.5 million. Still a bit too early for the Claw for me, although it is definitely a much higher price range that you get on the spikes here. So it must be more popular than the Aries, I think, at the moment. Yeah, I would like to see it below 19 million in order to actually start purchasing Claws. We're not there yet. I think we have some momentum in this. I think that it's still possible to see these sell orders disappear, basically. Buy orders, excuse me. Next up, we've got the Crow. So that's also an interceptor. Come on. To my surprise, quite a bit more stable. Doesn't it have good weapon systems? Let's take a look at that. Light missiles. I would think that rockets and light missiles make this a pretty popular choice. We do have a few spikes up to 35 million, but if we disregard those, we have price spikes up to 27.5, bottom 21. You know, I'd like to see that closer to 20 like the Aries, in order to make speculation possible, but just not there yet. And the bars are at, well, less than 21 million though, 20.8 million. So I would say Crows, you could try to pick up a couple on the buy orders here as well. Aries next. Let's take a look at that. High points around 55 million, 50 million if you want to play it safe. Bottom, we're definitely at a pretty low price range at the moment. 38, 39 million, 40 million for the buyers, 35 million for this, goddammit, 40 million for the sellers, and 35.4 million for the buyers, which is historically speaking, we're basically at a 1 year low point. So if you want that long-term gamble, but that definite 1 year low, the Aries is a place to look at. Flycatcher next, another interdictor. Let's get rid of some of the volatility here and take a look at that. Well, 55 million back towards 54 million on the chart as a median daily price. Above 60 million is definitely possible. The buyers are at less than 50 million, which on the chart is right here. So yeah, Flycatchers again, maybe your time to move in on the buyer side of things here. Here's the Heretic next, an interdictor that knows quite a bit of volatility, goes up to almost 60 million. Here the drastic shift back down is quite substantial, down to 45 million. 42 million for the buyers is well below the entire chart. Once again, yeah, Tech 2 could be the time to build up some stocks here as well. Here's the Hound. Yeah, we have again price spikes up to 30 million, not insignificant. Now we're hesitating, but going down towards 19 million. Really, are we below 18 on the buyers? We're at 18 on the buyers, so again, you could try to buy some of these, I think. Next up, Malediction. That unfortunately is still holding on around 20 to 25 million, which I don't really like. So 21 for the buyers, 24 for the sellers. Nope, it's just not as visibly down as like the Hound, as like the Ares, and some of the other ones. So Malediction, nope. Manticore, nope. If you look at the chart here again, unfortunately, we need to be well below 22 million for the buyers. Well, 22.4. It's trying, but I just don't really like the Manticore that much. Nemesis next, that's again a nope because of the 22.5 million here, 21 million for the buyers. You could risk it, but you can see that you can buy Nemesis below 20 million as well. So nope, too early. So the stealth bombers are still in the nope phase. They're in between their highs coming from there, but they're not in buyer territory just yet. The interceptors though seem to be quite a bit more interesting, and a couple interdictors as well. The Saber is just not one of them, because you can see that you can purchase these well below 50 million, and we are actually at a high point now, selling for 59 million and buying for 53 million. So for the Tech 2 market, yeah, the Saber is the one that's still doing all right on the seller side. The stealth bombers are coming back and are basically right in the middle of high points and low points, so you wouldn't make a move on those. But the interceptors and a couple of interdictors like the Ares, which is crazily enough at a 1 year low, are more interesting. You could definitely look at those. Tech 3 next at 40. All right, let's make it that. So here we were oversupplied like crazy last week, and I don't think it's ending just yet. So the Confessor is still selling for 29 million with hundreds of them on the market. Now, fresh dumping isn't happening here anymore, so this is basically as low as the sellers are willing to go. I've been buying a couple of those, so I've bought a couple of all the Tech 3 destroyers for like 100 million each or something like that. So, you know, I think that if you look at this 1 year chart, 1 year low price point, it's a time to buy a couple of those. Here's the Hecate next. You've got a huge volume spike, so, and it's already happening. First sellers up to 35 million ISK, buyers are at 30 million, and last week I bought a couple of Hecates at 29 million, but someone came in here, bought everything basically below 30, probably 34, 35 million, and yeah, that's why we get a little bit of a price spike up here. I could try to sell these already, right? 29, 3 million up. So yeah, try to sell these for 34.5 or 35 round, make just a little bit of money. I've got the patience for it because I don't think, considering the Confessor stacks and probably the others as well, I think we might see a new dump coming in. That's my expectation. So I'm willing to be patient on these Tech 3 destroyer investments. Here's the Jackdaw, again, really big volumes as well. Currently, I bought a couple at 29 as well. Currently selling for 33 million, but you can see what's happening right away, right? 67, 110, 52, and with the Hecate as well, in the last 24 hours, they're coming in. People are trying to get rid of their Hecates already, and so I wouldn't be surprised if the move happens a second time. I'm willing to wait on an actual spike, 40, 45 million, to be honest. And then next, or finally, for the destroyers, we have the Svepel. No big price spike here, so we are still selling hundreds of them at 29 million. Again, don't buy all of those as speculation, so only if you have some actual use for those, you can buy some more. But purchasing a couple of these, I think, makes sense for the longer term. As an investment, again, for a store of value, this is bound to go up if inflation happens. Here's the Tengu next, still under pressure currently. Oh, no, actually, we're gonna start with the top cruiser here. Here's the Legion. The Legion also under pressure, and it's currently selling for 128. Buyers are at 125, so that margin is definitely closing. Still a bit of dumping happening despite these very low prices, but I think we're bottoming out here as well. Loki next, that one bottomed out apparently in December, but went as low as 120 million. Currently 130 on average. Sellers are at 135, buyers are at 125. Bit more margin, also much more dumping. Full front page of new Lokis coming in right here. Proteus next, which is one that I am personally planning to use for the next event. Down to 130, currently selling for 129, buyers are at 120. If I would want to get in on some of the cruiser action, this is where I would risk a buy order, maybe 121, 122, something like that for a couple Pro TI, considering the 1 year chart, considering where 120 actually is, right around here. I would say that that is something you could risk. I tried it for the Tengu. You can see that that one is under pressure as well, selling for 129, but this is my buy order, one Tengu at 120, and people are coming in at 122. So I could up it to 123, or I could wait and hope that there is still some dumping that needs to be done, and thus that this will actually get filled up. I just don't think it's gonna happen, so I may have to switch this up to 123 to try and pick up a cheap Tengu. We'll see if it happens or not. But the tech tree market in general is crazy oversupplied. Some of them still have stocks of hundreds of ships that are being sold at basically 1 year low prices. It's all up to you whether or not you want to gamble for that. I gambled in here for maybe $500 million, something like that. Something very small, very conservative, couple of all the destroyers, couple of buy orders on the Tech Tree Cruiser side of things, stuff that I might actually fly myself if it never comes back. That's basically my philosophy here at the moment, but with everything I'm making above 20 billion in my wallet, I am moving towards investments at this point, slowly and steadily. I think this week it's gonna be a couple of minerals, to be honest. And finally, for the extra product at 45.40, I'm going to take a look at faction cruisers. Why? Because of the event that comes next week. I think faction cruisers and cruisers in general are the go-to ships for these. You can use tactical destroyers, right? I think they can get the job done, but in general, I think they'll be much slower than the cruisers, and speed is basically the name of the game here. So a quick look at the Augurer Navy issue here, bit of a jump up, nothing too special. I don't think that this is event related, but we're definitely bumping off of a low point here. Of course, these Navy issue ships tend to be related to faction warfare, so I think that Caldari must be doing decently well. Currently Caracal Navy issue going for 50 million, decently high volumes as well. If you're looking for a ship, for an alpha clone ship as a Caldari for these sites, you know, the Caracal Navy issue may actually be a pretty decent option for that. Light missile and heavy missile launcher rate of fire, also heavy missile. So you either need to go like TP with heavy missiles, or you focus on the light missile launchers and just try to get your damage up with the fittings there. But I think that this one, let's take a quick look at the fitting. 2, 4, 6 launchers, and it only costs 50 million. To be honest, you can definitely make something happen. Medium slots, also 5 medium slots. That's not bad if you want to put in like a TP, maybe a web, something like that, because you know that everything is going to come really close to you. And then still 4 low slots, you can definitely up that. So Alpha Clone, Caldari character, Caracal Navy issue, I think it's an option for the event. Executor Navy issue here, a bit more expensive at 65 million. And then we have Vixor Navy issue, of course, if you're an alpha character and you're Galente. Oops, let's go for the Vixor Navy issue chart. It's a bit expensive, 90 million, but it's just such a great drone ship that you'll be able to do these sites decently well. You can deploy small drones for the frigates, and then medium drones for the cruisers and the final battle cruiser. You can either go more tank, you can go more damage and try to guide around a little bit. The Vexor Navy issue will do this without any trouble, and you'll have the versatility to hit all the targets there as well. So that's probably your go-to ship for just basically exploration in general as an alpha character. I think Galente makes most sense, but this is of course your option here as well. Then for Amar, we have luckily very cheap Omen Navy issues, so these are going for less than 50 million. And the other one is Mia Names. Is it? No, it's not Osprey. Oh, it's the Augurer. I wouldn't really know what to tell you. When it comes to these, I don't know enough about them. But luckily both of them are very cheap. Yeah, both of them 50 million or less for the Amar. variants. I would probably gamble Omen Navy issue if you want to run the side tier as an MR Alpha, but don't take my word for it. I don't know enough about these. And then for the Caldari, yeah, Caracal or the Osprey, which is very cheap as well for 50 million, I would probably go with Caracal. 6 launchers and the ability to get plenty of mid slots for a TP target painter, so that even your heavy missiles might do the job. I think that's gonna be your best option here as well. Very cheap too, less than 50 million. So that's it for those Navy faction ships. Honestly, Caldari very affordable, Amar very affordable. Amar's probably the least good choice. I think you need really great tracking with lasers. It's not gonna work out on those very fast cartel ships. Missiles always a good choice, and of course Galente more expensive, but probably one of the best options with Vexor Navy issue. And Minmatar, yeah, I don't know a lot about Minmatar. Let's take a look at Side Fleet issue. Probably not your choice. 53 million, good price. Stabber Navy issue is probably where you want to go at, less than 50 million, so pretty affordable option as well, I think, for alpha clones. Now if you want in for some more expensive stuff, a Shimu, probably not one to look into. Cinnaball, I think, could do it. Autocannons, you could put webs on that. Price range 140 million, a bit above average right now, but still definitely doable. And Cinnaball, you can make that a close range brawler against their sister ships, because the rats in the sights for the cruisers and battlecruiser are also a Cinnaball model. I think it's definitely an option. I'm not seeing any like speculation on people buying a lot of them in order to expect usage out of them or more demand out of them because of the event. Here is the Ortrus, definitely also going to be able to run those sites without any problem, but 220 million, definitely a more expensive option. Phantasm doesn't cost that much, 120 million, definitely at the low range, but it's a laser ship, and it's probably my least favorite weapon system when it comes to these fast little frigates. I think you're gonna have trouble with that. Stradios, definitely an option as well. It still looks pretty affordable, although with 210 million, it's pretty expensive in general to buy a Stradios, but it's definitely a great ship all around to do this. Also covered ups, you could risk a bit more with the Stradios, maybe wormhole space, low sec if you really want to. Gila, of course, one of my favorite ships at the low end, but still 200 million. Again, here the application of your medium drones on those small first wave frigates is going to be decently tricky. 2 tracking computers, maybe something in the low slots to try and make it better. Or what the other option, which is probably what I'll test, is go for missile damage on the small ships, and then just be lucky with the medium drones hitting, but try to get the missiles to clear out the first wave, and then have the medium drones plus missile combination on the cruisers and the final battle cruiser. So obviously a really good ship. Someone said that they tested it out on CC and that they could clear the site in around 3 minutes in a Gila, which is pretty damn crazy. So you need some really good application for that, but I think you can do that if you get the right missile damage to apply on the frigates. And finally, we also have a Vigilant here. Let's take a look at that one. And the Gila, 200 million. It's expensive, but it's trading at the lower range. Here's the Vigilant, trading probably around average 210 million ISK. Let's take a look at that one. I don't know the ship too well, but I think it's possibly a good Galente brawler for my blaster web idea. So 5 blasters, definitely not bad. 4 mid slots, there is room for double web or web scram or something like that. Does it have any drones? Yeah, 50 drone capacity as well. You could go, let's see. That's a bit more annoying. I think 50 is good for 5 medium drones only. And so if you want to take some small drones for the first wave, not that great. You could definitely work with the Vigilant, plenty of options. I would go for blasters and maybe web, double web, something like that. But I'm not sure what to do with the drones on this one, because I don't think you can take both a flight of small drones and a flight of medium drones in that, which is unfortunate. That would have been perfect. 5 small drones for the first wave, medium drones out for the second and final wave. So the Vigilant is definitely an option as well. You just don't have the versatility of, let's say, Stradios when it comes to the drones there. That's unfortunate. Price-wise, 210 million, again, pretty expensive, right average for the ship itself. So there you go, those are the faction ships. You know, I'm curious to see what the Alpha clones are going to do, to be honest. I would say Caracal Navy issue, Vexor Navy issue, your top 2 choices when it comes to that. And the Vexor Navy issue is pretty expensive, the Caracal Navy issue very cheap at less than 50 million at the moment. And that's basically going to be it for this EVE Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, good luck in the events, and I'll see you all next time.